All right.
Welcome everybody to Congregation L'Dor Va-Dor. It is June 23rd, Wednesday evening, and we're delighted to have everybody with us tonight for our Rabbi Sam Silver Controversial Issues Forum. This is a monthly series, usually held on the third Wednesday of each month. We had a conflict last week, so we changed it to the fourth Wednesday. And tonight, the topic is the new leadership in Israel and American politics. And we have with us Rabbi Barry Silver, our spiritual leader of Congregation L'Dor Va-Dor. And we have Tzachi Gadish, who is playing games with his iPhone right now. And Tzachi was, correct me if I'm mistaken, but Tzachi was a captain in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. He has mucho family in Israel and has many ties in Israel, a lot of families still living there, and it keeps completely up to date with everything happening in Israel. So he's a very good resource for anything Israel for us. So we have Tzachi Gadish and we have Rabbi Barry Silver with us this evening. And take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you. Yes, we welcome Tzachi to our discussion. And his name is Pure Hebrew because it means purity, like the pure olive oil that we use to celebrate Shabbat. And he is a pure spirit. I'll add a few accolades to him that Sharon shared with us. He is a soldier. He's someone who served on the front lines, but he's also a scholar. He's a scholar of Hebrew. He doesn't just speak Hebrew. He's a linguist and understands the language well. He also, I believe, is conversant in Arabic, and he's also very conversant in Israeli history, which is very interesting because the people who serve in the IDF, unlike other countries, are not just trained soldiers. They're trained in history. They're trained in other cultures. They have training that most countries would never engage in with the people who do military service. So he's someone who, yes, he's familiar with the conflict, but he's also familiar with the background, the history, and the people of Israel. And he's a good friend of our congregation, and he's also capable of doing something which we cherish here at L'Dor Va-Dor. He's actually able to speak with someone who holds a different opinion and do so in a friendly, engaging, amiable fashion. The Rabbi Sam Silver Controversial Issues series was formed because my dad, Rabbi Sam Silver, was someone who engaged in discussion and dialogue with people of all backgrounds and did so in a friendly, respectful way. This is something that is not done too often today. Usually people yell and scream at each other, they don't talk to each other, and they lose it. So today we celebrate the fact that L'Dor Va-Dor, that we bring people together, different backgrounds. We had a fascinating discussion last night with Rabbi Khan, in which we explored whether God really wrote the Torah and whether the claims of the Orthodox hold up to logic and reason. Fascinating discussion. If you missed it, you might want to check it on our archives. And today we're also going to have a very interesting discussion on Israel and American politics. I want to warn everyone here before we start. You will hear things tonight that are going to directly contradict some of your most cherished views. You will hear things tonight that challenge your belief system, and probably you'll hear it from me. You may also hear it from Tzachi, I don't know, but you'll probably hear it from me. When you do that, when you hear something that really disagrees with what your cherished beliefs are, I hope you'll resist the first impulse to get upset and to yell or strike back or get angry. And I hope you'll try to do this. Listen and see if there's any truth to what's being said when you hear an opinion that differs from your own. Take that moment to see, is there some truth? Maybe it's not all truth. Is there some truth to this? Is there something I can learn from? And then, is there something where I disagree? And then if so, is there some response that I'd like to raise calmly to what I just heard? If we can all agree to do that, then we'll have an awesome discussion. On this particular topic on Israel, politics and what's going on over there. I defer. My yarmulke is off to Tzachi. He has great expertise in this. I do not. I wouldn't say a casual observer, but I know what's going on to some extent, but not nearly as much as Tzachi does. When it comes to American politics, well, I have some expertise in that. I serve in the Florida legislature and I keep track of what's going on. And I've been to a whole bunch of protests and demonstrations. On Israel, I'm going to defer to Tzachi. And Tzachi, I'd like you, if you would, to first of all, give us some of the background about what's going on in Israel from an objective point of view. And then I would like you, not objectively, I'd like you to share your opinion on what you think about what's going on in Israel. And then we'll talk about American politics towards Israel. Tzachi, it's all yours. Go right ahead.
Okay, Erev Tov, good evening
Erev
for
Tov.
everyone here, and beautiful evening here. But we're talking about Israel. Some people are not living in peace right now, afraid from their neighbors, from the other side, whomever. Israeli government now, it's a coalition of basically so-called right-wing Likud, or people that anything but Bibi, Netanyahu. And in order to create at least 61, actually they got 60, they got together with some left government and also some Arab government. And by that, they have to give them some portfolios, which means some ministries or being chairs of some sometimes sensitive type of committees that can even go all the way as to attack or not to attack. So they can veto it as a democracy in Israel. It's rampant. So basically, the government is not popular too much. Bennett, that is sitting there, also lived in the United States, by the way. He's very good in English, was a high-tech guy. He was also a captain in Israeli commando elite group, you know, like we have here. And he has only 6% of all the as a mandate, 6% at 120, and he became a prime minister. That's really a democracy. You know, you don't need to be the majority. It does not have really a crowd behind him. Should he fall or the government will fall, I think his career will be over because people will not trust him, you know, going to the other side and just doing the opposite of what he told their voters. Otherwise, they wouldn't have voted for him. They most probably would vote for Netanyahu. So this is a quagmire, but we stuck with it now. I think they're going to bring some good things. I see, like you said, what my opinion, I think it's good. It's good. And I'm like you, Barry, I'm happy that Bibi is out. Maybe he can go and play golf with Trump, you know? So basically, yeah, Bibi is out, but he's still the head of the opposition. And many people calling him Bibi Melech Israel, you know, like David Melech Israel, the song. So wherever he goes, people are like standing and dancing. It's like really a phenomena of a guy that really lost the election and did bad things and still, you know, being, you know, investigated for bribery, etc. Won't go into that. And it could even end up in jail or some type of big slap on his hand. So the country is split. You see people protesting all over the place. It's really not safe really to go. You know, it's like anytime it could really explode. We're sitting on a big, you know, barrel of TNT. And you never know where the fuse is going to be started and who's going to blow the whole thing to hell. So that's why we have to be careful today. And I think that Israel showed the Hamas in Gaza that it could strike. But as usual, we never finish the job all the way. You know, we learned it from Moses and the Israelites. They didn't finish the Amalek, right? He told us to wipe the Amalek. We didn't do it. Those are the same guys. Esau, Edomites, Haman, Hitler, they're all from the same tribes, Germanicus, you know, the history. And, you know, so it goes all the way for a few thousand years now. Kamim alenu lechalotenu. They just keep ganging on us and to finish up, like in the Haggadah where we sing. So basically, Israel military today is really not a big strength against Gaza and balloons with TNT and some other stuff in them. I mean, sure, we could have some technology of shooting every balloon that is being up, you know, on the air with some laser, hopefully they're working on it and they don't need me to suggest it, So, we should really eradicate, at least because they're burning all our fields, and it's not a joke. A lot of fields and forests being burned all over Israel by arsonists, and once in a while they catch the bad guys, but the court just slapped them on the hand, and after 2 days they release them to stay home, house arrest. Very funny. So in Israel, and it's not easy to be now. It's not easy to be a religious guy to live in the West Bank, or even to go to some places in the old city. My family lives mostly in Modi'in, which is between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, close to the airport, actually. It's like a new city. So over there, it's more homogeneous society, and we are not mixed with Arab neighbors like in Lod, Ramle, other places in Israel that literally neighbors went and burned other neighbors' houses, throwing Molotov cocktails, burning cars. We don't see it too much on the news, maybe in America, but it's really, really a sticking point, in Israel. And when you cannot trust even your neighbor, that you just were trading with him and then exchanging cookies and everything, suddenly it could be the next guy that can do something to you. And vice versa. We have a lot of Jewish vigilantes that will do the same. But by numbers, really, it's 100 versus a handful of people, vis-a-vis Jews against Arabs. But it's more prevalent on the other way. So actually, I'm leaving to Israel on July, the end of July. Hopefully, I can come back and talk to you more. But I don't feel safe for the first time in all my years, being everywhere with shooting and everything. I really will think twice where to go in Israel, especially alone or with somebody like my brother. We're trying to get some, hiking and everything. So it's become dangerous. The government itself is trying to pass all kind of very quickly rules and regulation. Hopefully they'll ease up the economic strain on the people. We finishing, like here, I think, giving the unemployment to people that are employable, because people did not want to go to work. Like here, they got a few $100s every week. So they say, why work for a little bit more? Let's stay home. So Lieberman, he became now the finance minister, treasury, and he said that that's it. By the end of June, all the people have to go to work. Of course, there always are the cases that will continue the Social Security help, but you have a lot of things going on. We're trying to, in the school system, a lot of kids got corona, and the teachers got it too. So we're trying to, quiet down that particular numbers, and try to go to some very local quarantines and wearing masks. And the airport, you have to take a big corona test. Are going to do it 72 hours before here. Over there, you have to do it at the airport and everything. And if they see that you're sick, you have to go to quarantine. They're really going to monitor you and fine you up to 5,000 shekels, which is maybe close to $2,000, something like that, 1,500 fine. So Israel in a little disarray. And I could read between the line and hear some of those controversial shows, that they bring both sides and they tell you really, really what's going on from education to religious things. This government also going to really stop giving the religious people and ultra-Orthodox a lot of money for not doing anything. So I guess that's already become a tiff between the Haredim and the government. So you can see it's never a dull moment in Israel, as if you've been there, so you know what's going on, from taking the bus to whatever, going to the store. So, we still believe that we can come out of it and we'll do better than before. And of course, you have America now, so Biden, Bennett, hopefully they're trying to get together and repair so-called the rift between Netanyahu and the Democrats and the Jewish people. As we know, a lot of them were not happy the way he was handling many things. So hopefully we can bring back us, the Jewish people that live in America, closer to Israel, maybe see a little bit of some type of common wishes that we want to see how the country will be run there, especially if we give them support, money, politics, voting. So that's important for us. And Barry, you're doing the right thing, trying to cap the differences between people, and hopefully we can look like a peace sign. Both sides going into one direction, and that's instead of split. It's not a wishbone anymore. We have to do it, and that's
Tzachi,
hopefully will be good.
Tzachi, thank you for sharing your excellent opinions and thoughts on this. I have some questions, quite a few questions I would like to pose to you, but I just want to start out by saying we know the type of sick mind that we're dealing with Hamas, which thinks nothing of blowing up children and adults and restaurants and in schools and causing terror to a people that has already gone through the worst horror of the Holocaust and other episodes in history. We're dealing with sick people, but to actually set fire to fields and forests, many people think, well, so what? That's nothing compared to killing a person. But what kind of a sick mind does things like that in a world of climate change? And it's just outright destruction for destruction's sake. It's just so despicable. And of course, we don't hear anything about this in our media. There's, very few people are saying anything about it. But I for one, just find this horrific. Now, I want to ask you, Tzachi, a bunch of questions. First of all, I want your opinion on an unprecedented move that Israel has done by bringing an Arab political party into the government of Israel. You touched on it before, but just as a security measure, are you concerned about Arabs being in the government? Are you optimistic about Arabs sharing power, or are you ambivalent? Do you have feelings on both sides?
Yes, there are two Arab parties that joined the coalition. One is didn't join the coalition, but they, from the side, can support it by voting or not. So the one with Mansour Abbas is the guy that actually, trying to say to the Arabs, stop doing this crazy stuff. Let's think about our life. We have better life in Israel than in any other place. Of course, he was shunned immediately by the 2 or 3 other parties, Arab parties, calling him really traitor and everything. And now they have to put on him guards. Every time somebody talks for peace between Arabs and Israelis, the other Arabs are shutting him down. So
not just shouting him down, threatening his life.
Even reporters, a couple of reporters that being threatened, they had to leave their house with the kids and everything because their own Arab people did not like the way they comment about the situation. So you see that you're dealing, like you said, they like crazy. They're going to burn the food. They're going to burn vineyards, everything. They're stealing agricultural tractors, everything from they steal the whole field of corn. I mean, it's like low life. Never mind, like you said, Rabbi, who's doing it? I mean, crazy. What the forest has to do with it? They want, and not only that, they have a group that burning tires when the wind is going into the Jewish settlements and houses. Toxic. What it is, right? A burning tire can burn for hours and hours at a time. And it's all carbon. It's all the worst pollution ever, more than carbon anything, because it is like recycled carbon into carbon. So you have those low lives, they're doing it. So, but Israeli police are unable to do it. They are not being supported by even their own chief. So there's a lot of guns and ammunition and guns, powder, everything in all the Arab villages and in everywhere. There was a plan, or is one, to go from house to house, literally, at one point and search for it. But who's going to do it? I mean, the cops are not going to be suicide, right?
Tzachi, but if you could answer my question directly, are you concerned about the Arab parties? Are you optimistic about it, or are you ambivalent on it? What do you think about having Arab parties in the
No,
government.
I like the Arab Party, but I said I like the one that is more moderate, that want to have a dialogue. But if you put two more for the coalition, which they need to control the government, that's what happened. And you know, it's so you cannot. I like the dialogue. I think it will work well with Lapid and the other guys at Meretz that are more, you know, they're liberal. They're really open and see. Let's try. But the problem is that now the trying become very tiring, and the trying is dangerous. So when you cannot even walk in Jerusalem to the wall or go to the shuk and everything, that's what happened. What happened to us? So if Israeli guys cannot walk in their own city, we lost it. We lost the control. We lost. So right now, I think that we should keep working on this coalition. We should really embrace the Arab Party that is more moderate, so-called, you know, and next time if we hit the Gaza with our guys, we have to hit a little bit more. Just take building after building that belong to the Hamas leaders where we know where they are. So, but you have a government that is afraid. Look, but Bibi Netanyahu was afraid to go all the way. So why shouldn't a more right-wing, a more lefty government will do that better? So, but don't forget that the most wars happened when it was this government, you know, the government of Rabin. Those governments really did the main of the fighting. And really the right-wing government of Likud did a lot of those turning back territories. Begin is one. And of course, Netanyahu gave away Hebron and some others. So it's politics in Israel. It's like a crap shooting, you know? You don't know
By
what's
the way,
happening.
when you mentioned that Abbas talked peace and they shout him down, they don't just shout him down. They're threatening to kill him.
Yeah,
and historically in Israel, every Palestinian or Egyptian or anyone who talks about peace with Israel is assassinated. That's what happened with Sadat. So he's literally taking his life in his hands by doing this. And again, it's a mentality like, how do you deal with people who assassinate anyone who talks peace? It's just so monstrous where they're coming from. I want to also ask you, Tzachi, about American politics. Many people on the right say, oh, Trump was a great friend of Israel and Biden's a horror. He doesn't like Israel. He's an enemy of Israel. What do you think about Biden and Israel? Do you think that he's supportive? Is he against? Is he potentially a great ally? What's your views on Biden and Israel?
Biden is an ally of Israel and he likes Israel. You know, he's in politics for 40 years or so. So he have met everyone from Israel, you know, from Golda and up. And I think that he is very supportive. You see that he's tough on Iran. He could be not tough on Iran, like Barack, you know, Obama, but he's tough on Iran. He's tough on everybody. He's tough on Putin. I mean, who's going to call a Putin a murderer or a killer? But Biden, he doesn't care. The only thing that concerns me that in its own government, you have a lot of Islamists, you know, members of parliament and other committees that really want to see Israel wiped out of the map and even stop the support of Israel, sell that to us. So this is the danger. The danger is that the Democratic Party has to be tougher on those radicals in its own party and tell them, guys, this is not your problem. Let's talk about that. Let's not decide about Israel, you know, because you're Muslim or whatever you have, you know, leaning toward, you have to put it aside. You have to work for the best of America, not for the best of you and the clan that you came from. So it is a problematic, but I think Biden will be good. And don't forget, most of the aid to Israel is already in laws, you know, very hard to cancel those type of things for the next 10 to 15 years. So it's part of the agreement, and it's like axiom, you cannot change it, and it's right there in the books. But I think Biden will be good. And Biden is very busy now. We know what's happening here and everything. So he decided to put Israel a little bit. Then if you see what he sent to Israel, ambassador, other people from the Middle East. So you see those guys that maybe they don't love so much for the love of Israel, but you know that Israel is very important in a crazy world of the Middle East. So if us, America, we live here, and me too, we want really to be in geopolitics, we should support strong Israel and make the stand that it is. And Biden knows it. He had some good advisors. They're telling him, and many of them in the government are Jewish. You can have a minyan every morning in the White House, with so many Jewish people running.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tzachi, yeah, I agree with you, Tzachi. I think there's a lot of good people in the administration, a lot of pro-Israel people, a lot of Jewish people. And I think it's dangerous to politicize Israel by saying your party is anti-Israel and mine is pro-Israel and trying to make Israel a wedge issue. I don't think that's helpful. I appreciate your comments in that regard. Also, I would take a slightly different approach to the squad. I do agree with you about them and the anti-Israel people, but I wouldn't say put your feelings aside, don't worry about that issue. What I would say is, if you're liberal and if you believe in civil rights, then join with us in supporting the only place in the Middle East where civil rights are granted. The only place in the Middle East where women have rights, gays have rights, people who disagree with the government have rights. Support the only real democracy and bastion of civil rights. Support Israel and wage a campaign to get them on our side instead of always playing defense. The only thing I just want to ask you one more question, then we'll open up to everybody else. What about the right wing in Israel heckling and booing and saying that they don't acknowledge this new government, and kind of like what happened here in the United States with the Republicans saying, I don't acknowledge this as a valid government. These people saying, I don't acknowledge you as a valid government, and heckling them. What do you think about this?
No, I think it's a hooliganism, it's like they shouldn't be. They should do it, first of all, in the democratic way, which was done. That's it. Bibi had enough choices, to create a government. He failed. And, I think that, it's like here, people say, we don't believe in that. We want that guy back. But you always have a hardcore people that will do the heckling and everything. And it's a problem. But, don't forget that we have also the ultra-Orthodox and the kids that belong to different rabbis that are being influenced by them. So they try to, they say, oh, if the Arabs doing it to us, we're going to do it to them, which is a stupid way, because that's what the Arab want us to do. They want us to go back, because then you forget who starts who, so they can do whatever you want, like we're a child. No, you started, I started. Exactly. It doesn't matter. You're already beating each other. So I think that the heckling, I think it will subside. It will go down, especially when Netanyahu will leave Balfour, which became like the street of his building there for 12 years. They said that he doesn't want to leave, but I think he will. But so I think that this will be like a big catalytic type of a move that the king, the leader is leaving that house, symbolic house in Balfour, and going back to Caesarea, to Caesarea, which he has a beautiful villa and everything. So I'm not worried about the guy. But
Tzachi, I agree with you.
After that, people will realize there's a government, but the new government have to deliver what they say. You cannot just another committee to make another committee, So that's the problem. You need to be machers, go and get those things. 1, 2, 3, 4. Help the adult people, the adult population. We still have a lot of people that are hungry every day. We have a lot of illegals that are roaming the streets of South Tel Aviv. It's a lot of problems, and our soccer team lost. So anything, So
that's too bad. Tzachi, I just want to agree with you about the fact that there's Arab thugs and murderers who go around beating up Jewish people, but what's really disheartening and sad to see is Jewish people imitating that behavior. And I agree with you, it's far less than the Arabs who are doing it, but it's very, very damaging to the reputation of Israel, because it makes it appear like, oh, well, they're both killing each other. And the worst thing that Jews can do in a Jewish state is to have so-called religious people engaging in vigilante acts and beating people up. This is horrible. Let's open it up to everybody else. Anybody want to make any comments or questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead.
Okay, years ago, Maya Kahani, which I think we all would agree was no liberal, said the only answer is a two-state solution. And I'd like to get other people's thoughts about that, considering you can't kill ideas with bombs and guns.
Go ahead, Tzachi. What do you think about that?
This was very valid in the time of Ehud Barak, when he was there, because we had much less Jews living in the West Bank. Now with all the areas called A, B, and C, especially C area where you have a lot of, Israeli settlements there, it's very hard now to do the two-state solution geographically. So if you look at the map, you can see how close it is to everything. Will be a problem. Many Palestinian Arabs don't want to be a state under the PLO because they know what will happen to them. They're going to fall and be like Lebanon and Syria. So they know that it's better to be under the Israeli type of government that gives them really everything that they want, and most of them don't pay even property tax. You cannot collect anything. So for them, many of them, I tell you straight, no, we want to be like this. We want to be like the country for two people, but they don't want really to disconnect from Israel. So by this time, I don't think it will happen now. It will very hard to separate it. And then if they do that, so there'll be a state. Once you're a state, you cannot just wage a war against your neighbors, Then we can go and have to conquer them. So, right now they are not state, they are stateless in a way. So as a state, they'll have to do everything. They'll have to do their own money. They'll have to do their own everything. They are not ready to do it. They're not capable not to do it, unfortunately. They're not, it's hard. I saw how it was hard to make a state of Israel in 48, when my family was there from the beginning of 1900. So it took them almost 50 years and 10 more years until the 50s to be a state. I don't see that a two-state solution will do it.
Okay,
time he was at least he stuck to what he believed.
I have a slightly different view than Tzachi. I happen to think that the two-state solution, of course, is the only viable solution. And a two-state solution doesn't mean that the Arabs living in Israel proper today suddenly wouldn't be in Israel anymore. They would still be in Israel. There really is a two-state situation right now. Right now, the Palestinians kind of govern themselves in Gaza and the West Bank. And this is a testing period where they're able to have some form of self-government. I think it's the only viable option. And I think that's the inevitable solution to all of this. And I agree with Tzachi that if the Palestinians were really on their own and just had their own state and had to do everything themselves, it would be a horror. But I think Israel should allow that to happen. Say, go ahead. Agree to demilitarize, get rid of your weapons, and disband Hamas. You got your own state. You got it. Go for it. Let's see what's going to happen. But first, they have to renounce violence. And once they do that, then there can be a two-state solution. I think it should be offered. I think it should be proposed. And I think it's the only viable solution. Anybody else? And Tzachi, you and we're going to be limited, let's say, to 30 seconds to respond to a question. And the people commenting will give you up to a minute to either ask a question, make a comment, or do both. And we'll limit our response to 30 seconds. Okay, who's next?
Let me say something.
I was going to ask, I know that Netanyahu had many years as prime minister. Have they passed any kind of laws to limit the length of governorship in Israel yet, or it's still open?
Well, the offer is two cadence, two periods of 4 years, 8 years, trying to do it like the United States. I don't know if Bennett now going to be the prime minister, if he's going to vote for it, once you're in power, and the guy is really an ego guy. I remember him from way back then. He will do, and he did everything to sit on that premiership, even for a few months if he can. So this guy is really one of those special characters that snuck into that chair and everything. Time will tell. Hopefully, he's smart enough to continue. But we're talking about the Barry. You said the two-state solution. What do you think that we need another state that will be like Hamas or the PLO? They're in disarray. You know, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, they are in total bankrupt for years. Abbas himself, the leader, Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, we'll call him, not to mistaking Mansour Abbas from the Knesset now. So Abu Mazen, he himself cannot control it. He is not even doing election already for 7 years because he knows that he'll be out in a jiffy, and that's the problem. The two-state solution is really a far-fetched idea, or even to start. And you said what? They're going to denounce terrorism. They're going to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. They'll give away their weapons. Where are you dreaming? I wish it was good. That would be easy. We can't even go and get one Molotov cocktail.
Tzachi, remember
that he built without permit. So
Tzachi, your 30 seconds is up. I'll just say in response, Im tirtzu and zo agada. If you will, it is no dream. Okay, who's next? Who's next? Sharon, did you have another question? Anybody else?
Emily, Valerie, Gloria? Okay, Valerie?
Well, it seems, Saki, when you were describing what's going on socially in Israel, when you're saying that you have illegals that are in the country, you have violent people walking the street, you have people that should not be there. I mean, we're experiencing the same thing in this country. We have people coming across the borders that should not be here. We have gratuitous violence going on. We have a police situation that in many instances are afraid to police because they're being, renounced, they're being defunded, they're being reviled. So they're afraid to do their jobs. We have a police force that, the incoming new recruits or rookies are deciding not to become police officers. So we're heading into a very potentially dangerous situation. And it seems to me that Israel is following suit in its own right. So, it's just an observation based on what you're saying that we're going through exactly the same thing. Is it the government? Is it the politicians? Is it the electorate? What is your opinion as to why this is happening? And it seems to be mirroring itself, Israel and the United States. It's very disconcerting.
So basically, let's put things in perspective. Israel is the size of New Jersey. We have 8 million people. Maybe 6.5, 7 are Jewish people. The rest are Muslim, Christian, and others, Druze, Cherkess, Armenian, whomever, Christian a lot. But so if you have a few 100,000 illegal roaming the small country, and some of them, stealing and doing stuff like that, it's a problem. So it's not, in America, you can spread them from San Diego to New York, to New Jersey, to downtown Miami, Hialeah, whatever. But in Israel, it's right there in Tel Aviv. You cannot go to South Tel Aviv. We used to go there. They used to have nightclubs, beautiful restaurants, all closed down. I mean, the old shuk has to be moved, the big bazaar to another area. So it is a problem. They have already many years here from Somalia, Eritrea, Africa, other places. A lot of other people that used to come from Egypt, Sudanese, from Libya. Those are not guys that love us, and they're all Muslim. But now the kids live here. You're right. You're right about it. And the kids never been to Africa. They don't know even where their parents came from. They speak Hebrew, but some of them integrated in society, like the Ethiopian Jews, and some decided to stay in the ghetto. So it's like the same thing like here. It doesn't have to be illegal. We have a lot of people living in ghettos that, whatever reason, they stay there. So, and we know that whomever really want to go out of a ghetto or some poor neighborhood can do something with his life. There are enough people like you and us that will help them to advance in education. So you have problems, and of course we do pay for them. We don't disenfranchise them. We give them money. We give them free food, free medicine, free everything, free school, but they don't donate anything to the country. So it's very difficult to be to be very, loving to these people. And we're trying to deport them, and you cannot do much. Like here, try to deport someone, see what will happen to you.
Tzachi, I have a question for you. A lot of the American Jewish community, especially on the right, the right wing, the Orthodox, they tend to hitch their wagon to Trump. And Trump now is having facing some difficulties, let's say, as far as what he did as president, legality and things like that. Do you see any problem in aligning the Israel? A lot of the Israeli population, which is pro-Trump, and a lot of the right-wing Jews aligning so closely with Trump. Do you see that as a problem, and that they might be associated with him and his wrongdoing, or is that not an issue to you?
No, I don't think there's a problem. I think less and less people are going with Trump, like here, we're forgetting him and everything. And no, I think that we just, the hardcore of a Trump Bibi group, I think we'll understand that it's time for a change. And that's the new government is called the government of a change, Memshelet HaShinui. So we hope for a change. I want to change myself, I didn't like both of those characters. I'm glad they're out of office. So, I know you're glad. So I'm glad too, I have no some loving feeling to any of those yokels, I don't care. They did good in many things and they did bad in many things. And that's it. They just will go in history, whatever the book, the guy that write the book want to put in it. So I don't see. I think that a lot of the right wing, first of all, will go back closer to Bennett and some other ones, and if Biden and use peace or concern.
What do you think about Yair Lapid? What's your opinion about him?
Yair Lapid is a guy that really we'll say was a simpleton in a way. In the army, he was in the military radio army. He didn't finish high school. We're talking about higher education, so he never finished high school. Matriculated, whatever. So he was briefly a finance minister. He did in the beginning a big reform, and people liked him. But towards the end, he lost support, and he had to dwindle down. But he's a good character. He's an honest man. That's what's important. And look, he had doubled the votes of Bennett. And he told Bennett, go ahead, you'll be the prime minister. He saw how Bennett really cherished the place. And he said, it's better for me to be behind the scene with my radical party, Meretz and others, and everything, and let Bennett get all the fire right now. And he's a smart guy, even if he's a streetwise. And that's what he is. He was a street reporter. And I think Lapid, if he will ever replace Bennett in 2 years, he will be very good. So right now he's learning more and more how to bring the people together, and he's an honest guy. Unless Bennett that showed you with a big note, I'll never sit with the Lapid, I'll never be with the Arabs, and he did just 180. So, but Lapid consistently said what he's doing and what he wants to do, and he said, I'll do anything, I just won't sit with Netanyahu, and he didn't. Even if Netanyahu even offered him a premiership, can believe it or not, and he was a character not unlike Bennett. He said, no, I stick to my guns, and that's it, and to my voters. And that's what I like about him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Yair Lapid. I think he's a good guy. He's an honest guy. He cares about Israel, and he's willing to subvert his own ambition for the greater good. I think he's a very good influence. What's his party called? Is he the one who said Yesh Atid?
Yes, there is a future.
Yeah, there is a future, right? There is a future with him. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a great discussion. I will take if anybody else has any questions, that'd be great. But I think Tzachi, I have to say, you did an awesome job in summarizing everything and also calling it like you see it and not being partisan one way or the other, just being objective, which is what we're really all about here. So I appreciate that very much. Emily, did you have a concluding comment or question?
Well, just a quick question. I was very disturbed when Netanyahu said he was going to do everything he could to overthrow the new government. It was very Trumpian in style. And I think that those comments, his trying to maintain power, very similar to Trump trying to maintain power in this country, only makes for negative fractioning in both countries.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Tzachi, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that Netanyahu had to say it for his base, you know, like I'll be back, you know, like
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger. Yeah, I'll be back. Don't worry. True, not only him. There are some in the Likud party that are very unhappy with Bennett, you know, defection in a way and treason in a way that might really work hard to topple the government. I don't think they will do it. I don't think they'll be able to do it unless they really screw up big time, you know, the new government. But I don't think they have very good people, you know, with them. The new government has tons and tons of people that came from everything, from defense to science to everywhere. So I think that with Lieberman in the treasury, he's not going to dole money to just anybody that kills your tuches, you know. So they're going to say, hey, hold on, you got enough. Enough is enough. If you talk too much, we're going to take that too. So I think that guy, the Russian politruk, you know, or also people call him a crook. But you know what? Sometimes it's better to let the cat, you know, like guard the yogurt, you know. So you know that it's not going to be wasted. So I think that if the economy going to rebound, which is strong on the overall, we have a very low unemployment, went under 4.5%. That was the last I read, and everything. And a lot of people, a lot of businesses like here, they're asking people to come back to work. You know, they can't do it. You know, people stay at home still. That's why Lieberman said, no more free money. You know, you want money, go and work. You know, it's waiting for you. So we'll see what will happen. We hope all of us. Okay, and when I come in August back from Israel, maybe I'll be a little bit wiser and I can really give you more type of detail. Maybe you can do a Zoom from Israel when I'm there.
Tzachi, we wish you well. We wish you well in Israel. We thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, your expertise with us. The future for Israel has some very positive signs in that they're working out peace agreements with many of the Arab neighbors, and we hope that will continue. But I think it was made clear tonight that Israel continues to certainly need our help. They are fighting a tough battle with people who are just have no respect at all for human life, for the environment, for goodness, and they need our help. We need to support Israel, especially in the field of public opinion. And anti-Semitism and anti-Israel feelings are rampant in the United States. And that's why I believe that it's urgent to do what we did tonight, to bring people together on both sides of the political spectrum and say, we all support Israel. We don't divide up our allegiances, and Israel needs us right now. And any person who claims to support civil rights, especially in the Democratic Party and on the left, they need to be chastised and told, if you believe in civil rights, we need you to support Israel also. Israel needs all of us to speak with one voice, including the entire Democratic Party and including the American population. And I'm glad to see a great discussion tonight. Thank you, Tzachi, for contributing. Wish you well in Israel, and we hope to see you soon. Take care, everybody. And thank you for joining us. Hope to see you on Shabbat. Take care. Bye-bye.